As we have a global audience, I'll say good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. My name is Muhammad Khalil, and on behalf of the Michigan State University Muslim Studies Program, I'd like to welcome you all to our 14th annual conference. Established in 2006, the Muslim Studies Program has regularly promoted research and organized events and conferences that have attracted the attention of scholarly and other communities. The work of our diverse faculty covers many areas of the world and addresses various aspects of culture, religion, politics, history, health, social issues, education, and many other topics. For those of you who have supported the Muslim Studies Program in the past, we thank you, and looking ahead, we hope that you will consider supporting us in new ways. Once again, this is our 14th annual conference. The theme this year is Global Islamophobia and the news media, entertainment media, and social media. This theme was proposed by my colleague, Nazita Lajevardi from the Department of Political Science, and you will hear from her shortly. She and I will alternate in moderating the panels. And just so we're all on the same page, the conference runs from 8:15 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time to 2:15 p.m. And then tomorrow from 8 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time to 12 p.m. noon. Now we have some outstanding scholars with us here in this virtual meeting. They come from various parts of the world and are currently located in 5 different continents. And we have virtual attendees from various parts of the world. So it is fitting that a conference on global Islamophobia would have a global audience. Now at this time, I'd like to recognize those who made this conference a reality. In addition to Professor Lajevardi, I must acknowledge the incredible Mary Firdausi, the Muslim Studies Program Administrative Lead. Among many other things, she is responsible for setting up this webinar and coordinating with our presenters. I'd also like to thank Naila Ahmed for her contributions on social media. Furthermore, I'd like to recognize and thank our many co-sponsors, namely Michigan State University's Office for Inclusion and Intercultural Initiatives, College of Arts and Letters, College of Social Science, James Madison College, African Studies Center, Asian Studies Center, Global Studies in the Arts and Humanities, Department of Political Science, Department of Religious Studies, and Peace and Justice Studies. Now, the MSU Muslim Studies Program is a unit within International Studies and Programs, or ISP, and the administration of ISP has been extremely supportive of the Muslim Studies Program since its inception. At this time, I would like to invite the Dean of ISP and an Associate Provost, Dr. Stephen Hansen, to say a few words of welcome.
Thank you, and thanks everybody for joining us. I want to start by just thanking Muhammad Khalil for his outstanding leadership of Michigan State University's Muslim Studies Program. And I want to welcome the Muslim Studies Program core faculty and our distinguished guests to the conference today. As a top 100 research-intensive university committed to advancing global scholarship and knowledge, Michigan State University is proud to host the 14th annual Muslim Studies Program conference, this year focused on global Islamophobia and the media. We have an international strategy at Michigan State University that aligns and connects the university's thematic strengths, our regional expertise, and global partnerships. We found that when these efforts come together, we create global innovations and solutions with lasting impact. Events like this conference are important steps in advancing this themes region's relationship strategy. We're pleased to have a set of world-renowned scholars from various fields and regions with us today. This is truly a global conference. I understand we have participants from California to Brazil, Europe to Qatar, and India to Australia. Recently, MSU and ISP have been active in promoting values of diversity, equity, and inclusion. As Islamophobia is a global problem, it's critical that we arrive at a deeper understanding of the profound impacts of this problem and how we can adequately tackle it. One way MSU has committed itself to tackling Islamophobia is by creating the Muslim Studies Program. which, as Mohammed said, is a unit within ISP that was established in 2006. And the Muslim Studies program has made it its mission to improve the understanding of Muslim peoples. Each year, Muslim Studies program organizes major conferences such as this one and various other events and programs. They support faculty and student research and engage in community outreach, impacting our knowledge generation and our scholarship and helping to bring a global lens to DEI issues on and off our campus. So I thank you once again for bringing your energy and sharing your intellect on this important topic, and give you my best wishes for a successful conference.
Many thanks, Dean Hansen. At this time, I'd like to invite another individual who has been very supportive of our unit and this conference, and that is Dr. Nwando Achibe. Dr. Achibe is the Associate Dean for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion and Faculty Excellence Advocate for the College of Social Science. She is also the Jack and Margaret Sweet Endowed Professor of History. Dr. Achibe.
Good morning. Thank you, Professors Khalil and Lajavardi, for inviting me. Well, good morning. Good morning, colleagues, faculty, students, and community members gathered. It is important that we are celebrating this Arab American Heritage Month in the state of Michigan, at Michigan State University, as Michigan has the highest concentration of Arab Americans in the United States. While most sources trace Arab migration to the US to the 1800s, the historian in me is happy to offer a corrective. Arab encounters with the US can actually be traced back to 1528, when the first enslaved Moroccan man named Essibaniko landed in Florida. In addition, significant numbers of enslaved Africans brought to the US during the Atlantic slave trade were Muslims from West Africa, many of whom were forcefully converted to Christianity and given new names. These Muslims included people like Ayuba Suleiman Diallo or Job Ben Solomon, a slave merchant from Bundi in present-day Senegal, whom himself was captured in 1731 and brought to Maryland. There was also Umar ibn Said, a Senegalese religious scholar who was kidnapped, sold into slavery in 1807, and brought to South Carolina. These are but a few examples. Early Arab and Muslim Americans experienced erasure from official US records. This year, Governor Gretchen Whitmer proclaimed April 2021 as Arab American Heritage Month to, quote, celebrate the numerous accomplishments and rich history of this important group of people that make Michigan vibrant, unique, and strong, end quote. The state of Michigan has, however, not always been so welcoming. In 1942, the Eastern District Court of Michigan denied citizenship to Detroit resident Ahmed Hassan, a Yemeni immigrant. This court's decision was premised on Hassan's, quote, indisputable dark brown skin, end quote, which led credence to the court's belief that, quote, Arabs as a class are not white and therefore not eligible for citizenship, end quote. That was in 1942. Today, Arab Americans occupy a vexed position in the racialized American system. While the Census Bureau counts Arab Americans as white, in reality, most are treated as second-class citizens in their encounters with the state and its agents. Arab Americans, especially those who identify as Muslim, report extra screenings at ports of entry, removal from flights based on complaints by white passengers, and surveillance by law enforcement or intelligence agencies. So, this conference on global Islamophobia and the news media, entertainment media, and social media is particularly pertinent and timely. Moreover, it is poised as a corrective that contextualizes the xenophobia, bigotry, Islamophobia, Arabophobia faced by Muslims the world over, and how these realities of unbelonging are covered in the media. The College of Social Science is therefore honored to partner with Muslim American Studies as it unveils scholarship from myriad scholars gathered here today. During this Arab American Heritage Month, we in the College of Social Science stand with the Arab community of Michigan and the world. Thank you.
Many thanks, Dr. Achibe. At this time, I'd like to invite my aforementioned colleague, Professor Nazita Lajavardi, to say a few words. Professor Lajavardi is an assistant professor in the Department of Political Science. She received her PhD from the University of California, San Diego in 2017, her JD degree from the University of San Francisco School of Law in 2012, and her BA from the University of California, Los Angeles. Her work focuses mainly on issues related to race and ethnic politics, political behavior, voting rights, and immigration, and she's the author of the acclaimed book, Outsiders at Home, The Politics of American Islamophobia. Professor Lajavardi.
Thank you so much, Mohammed and Dr. Achibe. And, you know, I want to say thank you to everybody who's here. I want to say thank you to everybody who believed in this conference and offered their abstracts and their scholarship and is spending their time in solidarity and to build community. I proposed a conference on global Islamophobia in the media because, as we all, I think, know, the media has been a very important conduit for conveying messages to the public, but especially in conveying messages about Muslims to the public, both Muslims at home in the United States and also in other countries and in other contexts. And we have a great deal of scholarship that has taught us that, you know, the way that outgroups and minority groups are represented in the media has profound effects on public perceptions and treatments and behaviors towards marginalized communities, and Muslims are no different. And so I thought it was incredibly important for us to gather and to bring a very diverse and unique set of perspectives on how Muslims are treated in the media and from all different angles. And I am so proud to be involved in this endeavor over the next few days. I hope you all can see why it's such a pleasure to work at Michigan State, and especially with the Muslim Studies program. There is really, I think, no other place that supports the creativeness and honestly, the advocacy towards the rights of Muslims in the United States and abroad. And so I want to thank all of you for bringing your lenses and your voices to this space and for sharing space and building community together. I'm really honored to be here with all of you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lajavardi. So our first panel will actually begin in less than 2 minutes. So before we begin, I'd like to, first of all, thank Dr. Hansen, Dr. Achibe, and Dr. Lajavardi for their opening remarks. I'd like to thank you all for being with us this morning, for those of us in Michigan, and afternoon and evening, wherever you may be. And let me tell you a little bit about the format. We are adopting a webinar format. What that means is that all of the panelists and moderators are able to turn on their video and audio. Everyone else is an attendee, which means they may type out questions in the Q&A. Each presenter will have 15 minutes, and at the end of each panel, we will have a Q&A session. I also want to point out that we will be recording many of the presentations. So for those of you who are not presenting, you might prefer to select speaker view instead of gallery view, so you can see just the person speaking and not everyone in the meeting. Thank you again. Welcome to you all, and we'll get started shortly. Thank you. Dr. Nofret, Berenice, Hernández, Vilchis. Dr. Vilchis graduated from the Carlos Septién Garcia School of Journalism, where she became interested in the Palestinian question. She continued her specialization in the Middle East at El Colegio de Mexico. Her doctoral thesis was about Palestinian journalists' process of professionalization, and she defended it in March 2015 at the University of Aix-Marseille, France. She is interested in the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, construction of narratives, memory and identity, martyrdom, media representation of minorities, and migrations. She has been professor at Universidad Iberoamericana, Instituto Tecnológico y de Estudios Superiores de Monterrey, and my pronunciation I'm sure is awful, and Anahuac University, at Colegio de Tlaxcala and Instituto de Ciencias Jurídicas at Puebla. And again, I apologize for the pronunciation. With that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Vilchis.
Thank you very much to the university and all the organization. I'm very glad to be here. So I will share a little genially presentation. I love Genially now, he's my best friend. So today I will try to explain how Orientalism is linked to the Islamophobia concept. This is a work in progress research because I have been working also in martyrdom, and my research in journalism and Palestinian journalist has been leading me to this, I think. So let's begin. From Orientalism to Islamophobia. I think it's not by chance that it was, as you all know, Edward Said, a Palestinian scholar, the one who came up with this concept, Orientalism, right? So as already Imad had said, the definition of Islamophobia is tricky because it includes different aspects like racism, xenophobia, morophobia, sexism, and I would add also Orientalism. So this prejudice towards Islam and Muslims can also be extended to Arabs and their culture, even if they are Christians. And the term, I think the term morophobia used in Spain can explain also this irrational hate to the Muslims, but also to Jewish people. You know, it's like during the period of Isabella Católica and Fernando de Aragon, it was important for this queen and king, this Catholic kingdom, to not just to take the control of the country, of the territory, but also to get rid of any sign of Oriental heritage. It was even if it was Jewish or Muslim or Arab. So I think if we go through this explanation of how we define the Oriental as the other, we can also explain Islamophobia better, because it's a tricky and a new concept. And so we have Ghassan Kanafani, one of my journalists, also Palestinian. He was also Christian as Edward Said. And his work was very important because he was not just a journalist, he was also a writer. A lot of his novels were really important in the region in the 60s and 70s, also small tales. And he tried to create a counter narrative, I think, with his work. So how does the mainstream media has increased this hatred toward Muslims and Arabs after the 9/11 attacks? We already know that, but this terrorist archetype has prevailed over other archetypes of Orientalism, and I think it has been tried already with Palestinians before the 9/11 attacks. So, for example, Ghassan Kanafani, he never participated in a terrorist attack, even if he was part of the PFLP, but he was working as a spokesperson, as a journalist for this organization. And although and he was murdered by the Mossad because his counter narrative was really important. All his work was not just a critic to the Israeli occupation, the Israeli violence toward Palestinians, but also toward the Palestinians themselves as being not able to the Nakba of his father in the 40s, not being able to to face Zionism, to face this migration, to face colonization, to face the Britons. So that's why this counter narrative, explaining the complexity of a society, it's important for memory and identity, and Israel knows that, and they don't want the counter narratives to flourish, so they try to also to stop this kind of critics and narratives that are also trying to make more complex a context, because that's the problem with all this kind of Islamophobia and this kind of discourse of xenophobia. They tend to simplify culture, so like Orientalism. So here we have Mohammed Faraj, one of my interviewees in Palestine. He was a photographer at the time in Wafa during a lot of years, and he mainly take photographs of cultural events. So, and then he has just finished his master's degree, and his thesis was about, because I keep in contact with him, I keep writing him. So his thesis was about photography and memory and identity. He know this is important, like a lot of Palestinians know, in order to make it visible that there is not just violence in this society, So one of the photos here we have one of these photos of Mohammed Faraj. I love it. It's really amazing. It's from a cultural dancing in Ramallah, some event about dance. And so Islamophobia tends to raise the narrative and the culture of the identity as Orientalism do. It is a prohibition to represent themselves, and they know that. So Palestinians try to represent themselves in a lot of ways, by theater, by cinema, by photography, by journalism itself. So they try to counter the mainstream media simplification of this whole culture. And here we have Hannah Jihad. I haven't talked to her when I was there because she was really young and I was finishing my field work. But then I wrote to her last year. I think I have been writing to her. This is she began being a reporter as when she was 7. Now she's 17 or 18, and she's from Nabi Saleh. Where she has witnessed the detention and murder of a lot of her family members and also friends. So she's also aware of the importance of storytelling and the storytelling importance also in the identity. So in a lot of interviews, because she has been in the States, in fact, and also in South Africa, I think, she has said that she wants to be a CNN reporter because in this way she will give voice to Palestinians' daily life complexities. So she wants to visualize this complexity also. She understood really young that mainstream media was not visualizing this complexity. Just simplifying it and making it difficult to understand Palestinian outside terrorism and violence. And I have this example, Abu Ayesh, Darina Abu Ayesh, exactly. This was one of the first Palestinian women that had committed a suicide attack. So from the mainstream media, it's a terrorist attack, and from Palestinian point of view, they are martyrs or shaheeds. She was the second one to do it, and it happened that during my fieldwork, I interviewed her sister. So I think that even if these kind of attacks do fit the terrorism definition, mainstream media and maybe also sometimes scholar work doesn't stop to think why these young women and young men decide to use their body as a weapon, and which are the circumstances that make them to take this decision of that to think that their death can be a political statement and their body is a weapon, and maybe it's the last opportunity they have to do this and to resist. So and I have been in my work about martyrdom, I have been reading, of course, Achille Mbembe and his essay, a wonderful essay about necropolitics, and I think it's important in order to take out all these prejudices of Orientalism and Islamophobia, to understand these necropolitical context where they live. So why these young people decide to use their body as a weapon. So they find this way to resist the systematic oppression they live in. Maybe it's not the better, but they find this like the last way. And when I interviewed her sister, she told me also something really similar to Hannah Jihad. So, she wanted to become a journalist. I'm pretty sure now she is a journalist. She was really young back then. Because she wanted to make a different coverage about what was going on in her society. She told me that the day her sister died and the mainstream media came over to her place, they didn't respect the pain they were feeling for this loss. And so she told me, I want to tell the truth, but also I want to take care of the feelings of the people when I do my work, and I want to show also this complexity where we are living in. So I'm pretty sure that what I realized in Palestinian is that they are aware of this stigmatization, of this prejudice that is at that time, maybe it was not called Islamophobia because it was a concept that came out in the 90s, but it was already the Orientalism, the concept was already there maybe for the 70s, 80s, and they already were facing these prejudices for just being Arabs or Muslims. Or the others, the exotic Orientals, the violent Orientals. But as also Imad had said, these kind of narratives migrate also, you know. So in fact, I came to migration through narratives, because narratives and discourse and speeches also go from one place to another. And what is Islamophobia? How do we live Islamophobia in Mexico? So I have 3 examples, and with that I will finish. Khalid Shami is my Arabic professor. He's from Morocco, and he has been living here from 20 years or more. He's married to a Mexican girl, and he has also children with her. They celebrate Ramadan and Christmas, and so I find this wonderful because there is interculturality here in this example, and he feels at ease in Mexico. He has told me that even he has been living in France, Spain, Belgium, and Canada, and other countries from the Arab region. He really finds at ease in Mexico. He doesn't feel discriminated, but I have realized that this is because he works at one of the most important universities in Mexico, that is El Colegio de México, but also La UNAM, but also because his religion is not visible, so he's easily accepted. He speaks Spanish very well. He has been living here. He sometimes has some beers. So as it's not visible, his religion in Mexico, there's a lot of ignorance still. But okay, it's not a visible Muslim, so we can accept him. The problem is like for people like Alina Garcia. Alina Garcia is a Mexican convert. I think since 2007, he has decided to become Muslim. She has decided to become Muslim. And in 2015, after the Bataclan attacks in Paris, she has been discriminated in the public space just because she wears the veil. And people here in Mexico doesn't stop to think why she's using the veil, where she comes from. She's just using a veil, where the Arabs and Muslims, all those people are violent and wild and terrorist, and the women are oppressed by the religion and by the patriarch and by the men. And so she has been attacked because of that, because all these prejudice and all these discourses that these speeches we consume from outside. So here I have the sexism point also, because she's a woman, she uses a veil, she is from this culture where women are oppressed by the religion and the men, and so she is discriminated in the public sphere in Mexico. And no, they don't even try to understand why the majority of Muslims in Mexico are still not from Arab region. Now there are a lot from Asia, but also they are converts. And this is something the Mexican do not know. So we just consume this Orientalist discourse, this Islamophobia speech, and then we reproduce it with all the ignorance about Islam and Arab culture, etc., etc. And here I have this last example that can help me to explain also this mix of xenophobia that maybe you have heard of it because it's in the States. I don't remember the city now, but Susan Barakat had been talking in a TED Talk. I have this TED Talk here. I will not put it because we have no time, but I just put it here. If you want the presentation, I can pass it, give it to you. So when I found this presentation, I was really shocked because she was, I know like that in the States, Islamophobia now can really lead to murder. This hate speech can really lead to murder. And she is one of these families that she lost 3 of her member families just because of being Muslims in the States. But also she gives an example at the end of the presentation of a Lebanese Arab Christian Maronite citizen of another city in the States that was also murdered just for being Arab. So that's a problem with Islamophobia, that it's a xenophobia that tends to mix Arab culture with a religion. And then Palestinians are one of these first examples of how being just Palestinian, being just Arab, was already a problem. They were criminalized. They were already put in the bag of terrorists just for being Palestinians trying to resist, maybe not in the better way, but trying to resist the occupation of Israel. So I think that's why in Palestine they already living this since the beginning of maybe the 20th century. And mostly after the loss of their land, the erasing of their culture and their memory and their identity, and the mixing Arab with Muslim. So they have been aware of this discrimination, and that's why they try to speak out, to speak off, to try to create new speeches and narratives, and through journalism, but also through art, also through scholarship, also through social media, also through I don't know, what I've seen in Palestine, it's they're aware of this, and they want to to create new speeches in order to counter, to create counter narratives through to this kind of criminalization and discrimination. Thank you very much. I think it's my time, and I hope to be clear because my French and my English and my Spanish now is always mixing up. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Vilchi. That was very clear. Thank you so much. Our next actually, we have now a co-authored paper with Dr. Mohibul Haque and Dr. Abdullah Khan. Dr. Mohibul Haque is professor in the Department of Political Science of Aligarh Muslim University in India. His areas of interest are international politics, Indian polity, minority rights, human rights, terrorism, globalization, and politics, Islam interface. He is a prolific writer and has contributed several articles, research papers, and chapters in edited books on socio-political issues of national and international importance. He has also authored a book entitled International Terrorism and Violence, a Human Rights Perspective. He has presented papers in national and international seminars, conferences in India and abroad, and he has been participating in discussions on television channels and other public fora as panelist, expert, and discussant. And the co-author of the paper is Dr. Abdullah Khan. Dr. Khan holds a PhD in mass communication from Amity School of Communication. He has had a distinguished career of more than 14 years as a media professional, and he is a South Asia expert who has led the coverage of political and strategic issues at multiple organizations and has an extensive experience in covering Urdu media and Muslim outreach in India. The title of their paper is Mapping Islamophobia, the Indian Media Environment. Dr. Haque and Dr. Khan.
Thank you, Professor Khalid. It is indeed an honor for me to have a presentation in this session. Of course, Abdullah Khan, who is co-author of this paper, is a better presenter. But being senior, I have got this opportunity to present paper today. As you know, it becomes very difficult to compress a paper which is running in more than 10,000 words in 15 minutes, but I'll try to do justice with the time. And you are free, Professor Khalid, to remind me if I'm exceeding time. So first of all, you see that this paper is based on the study of Indian media, which includes electronic and print media, mainstream media, social media, and of course, the invisible communicative channels or means of propaganda that is adopted by the rightist forces in the country. This includes the cadres, the members of the rightist organization who are visiting households, going to localities, convincing people, creating anxieties, fear, and of course, phobia in the minds of the people against Muslim minority. Before I start my paper, I should also mention that Muslim minority in this country, it has been studied that in all the socio-religious groups that are there in this country, Muslims are the most backward. Their representation in the educational institutions, their representation in the government jobs, or all the indicators of development, you will find they are negligible. Their population in India is 14%, but their representation in all the important institutions, you will find not more than 4 or 5%. Of course, they represent around 30% in jails. That is a fact. Again, before I go further, I am reminded of a statement by Thomas Shaz when he says that in the animal kingdom, the rule is eat or be eaten. And in the human kingdom, it is define or be defined. What is happening that the Muslims or Islam is being defined by people, those who believe in otherings or otherization, or those who believe in some kind of animization, creating internal enemies, creating external enemies, and then creating anxieties in the mind of the people, especially majority. That is advantageous if you see, in the electoral democracy, especially, that is profitable for them. Why? Because 80% of the Indian population is Hindu population. So that is why if you are creating anxieties and fear against Muslims, that will be beneficial. What we have witnessed that media in India, especially, that has played, of course, with notable exceptions, it has played a kind of role that we can say it is not a means of mass communication, but a means of mass deception. We have studied around 403 TV news channels, no, of course, not entertainment channels. And we find that very few channels are neutral or following what we call the journalistic ethics. Otherwise, most of the channels we will find they are trying to create such a kind of environment in the country as if there is always a conflict between Hindus and Muslims. We should remember that in this country, Muslims and Hindus, they have been living together for more than 1,000 years. And of course, the Muslims, they have been also rulers of this country, and they have significantly contributed to the development of this country, which is recognized by, of course, the liberal and the secular writers and the scholars as well. Islamophobia in India is very complex. It is not only phobia. So, what is happening in the West, and if you compare in India, that is very, very different. And why it is complex? It is hatred, it is animization, it is otherization, it is contempt, it is demonization, it is criminalization of a community. It is not only criminalization of a community, but also you will find that there are many people, who are having running, YouTube channels and all. They demonize even the Prophet of Islam. They will project him as a terrorist. They will project him as a plunderer. They will project him as, pedophiles and all. But, credit goes to Indian Muslims who have shown tolerance to all these kind of things. And they have tried to, answer in a very constitutional or, peaceful means. And that must be appreciated. You see that what are the different things that we have. For example, first of all, we should understand what is the media environment in India, and what kind of media we have covered. For example, mainstream media, that includes electronic and print media. Then we have committed media, which belong to the rightist forces or rightist political parties. And they have their own newspaper, they have their own channels, and that is one thing. The third is social media, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And you can regulate TV channels, but it is very difficult. And I wonder what kind of role this YouTube and the Facebook and the Twitter is playing in this country. It has become the main instrument of Islamophobia in India. Even the people are giving call for economic, genocide of the Muslims. The people are giving call for economic boycott of the Muslims, extermination of the community. And these people are free to run their channels on YouTube. So the YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, you'll find that is becoming main instrument of Islamophobia in this country. Then we have, invisible media. And that is to be understood. It is not something, why I'm mentioning this invisible media especially. And before that, I just wanted to share some statistics. You see, the invisible media that is playing this role and that is always owned by the rightist forces, you will find, first of all, you have to understand, the Sangh Parivar, that we say Sangh Parivar, the Sangh family, that belongs to all the rightist organization coming together. So it is, for example, RSS in India, that, that is one of the organizations, which is often, it is considered that BJP is the political wing, that the ruling party is the political wing of the RSS. With 6,000 pracharaks and 15 to 20 lakh participants, RSS has about 70,000 shakhas, branches across the nation, besides 60 lakh alumni and affiliate volunteers. It has around 15 to 20 lakhs participants in 57,000 daily, 14,000 weekly, and 7,000 monthly shakhas or branches, and 37 affiliates, 1.65 lakh projects. BJP, that is the ruling party today, the rightist political party in our country, it has 11 crore members, the largest political party in the world. Around 35 sub-organizations and fronts, including Bharatiya Janata Yuva Morcha, 5 crore overlapping members. Vishu Hindu Parishad, for example, has 65 lakh members. 20 sub-organizations, including Bajrang Dal and Durga Vahini. You have labor and trade industries, Bharatiya Mazdoor Sangh, that is around 1.7 crore members and 4,300 affiliate unions. Bharatiya Kisan Sangh, 32 lakh farmers in 26 states. The figures goes like this. So you can understand that when I'm talking about the invisible channel, these people are visiting households, going to localities, running daily programs, trying to convince people that the Muslims are a threat, to this country. Before, why they are doing this? Why there is a surge in Islamophobia in this country, and why the media channels, they are doing all these things today after 2014, when Narendra Modi came to power in our country. You'll find most of the media channels, they are doing because they are committed to a particular kind of ideology, and this ideology is to be understood in the light of the main, one of the chiefs of the RSS, who was the chief of RSS from 1940 to 1973, and he was M.S. Golwalkar. His book, Bunch of Thoughts, which is the most important ideological book of Hindutva in this country, that mentions 3 internal threats in the country. These 3 internal threats are: number 1, Muslim; number 2, Christians; number 3, communist; and the 4th has been added by other organizations today, and the 4th is liberal, secularist, or the people those who believe in the tradition of tolerance, Hindu-Muslim unity, or the people those who believe in liberalism or democratic values. All these people, they have been included. So the 4 kind of enemies have been identified. So all those who are not believing in rightist ideology, they all are enemies of the nation. So that is one thing, and that is why this kind of particular ideology with force and with vehemence is always projected on the TV channels as well as in the print media. What is the consequence? What happens because of this? That we have to understand. But before that, what are the various allegations that they make against the Muslims in this India and in our country, and that plays a very important role in violence against minority, violence against Muslims in this country. First of all, they will accuse all liberal and secular political parties for appeasing Muslims. There is one thing that is appeasement of Muslims, appeasement of minority is done by them, they will say. Number 2, they will say Muslims are responsible for population explosion in this country. Why? Because a kind of dark sexual obsession about Muslim women being very fertile and Muslim men being sexually very aggressive, producing a lot of children. So ultimately they will give the slogan that the Muslims are polygamous. One Muslim will marry 4 women, and ultimately what will happen? It will become 5, 4 wives, 1 husband, and then all are producing 5 children from each wife, and ultimately it will become 25 members family. And by that way, they can create an anxiety that very soon Muslims will outnumber Hindus, that 14% Indian population will outnumber 80% Hindus. This kind of propaganda they will make. Then, when the Muslims and Hindus, they are, living together, studying together, working together, you cannot control emotions. People may fall in love and they may marry. If, this rightist ideology all over the world, that is patriarchal, misogynist, and that is why what will happen, that for example, if a Muslim male is going to marry a Hindu woman, that will be projected as love jihad. Love is also a jihad, and there are legislations in this many states in the country against interreligious marriages. So that is another problem. Then Muslims will be also projected as violent, very aggressive, militant community. Then you'll find they will say that Muslims are most of the time terrorists. The same rhetoric all over the world, that all terrorists are all Muslims are not terrorists, but all terrorists are Muslims. When you have not a working definition, universally accepted definition of terrorism, you can have this kind of liberty to brand all Muslims as terrorists, or the terrorism can be defined as Islamic terrorism and all. Then you have also for example, Muslims will be also projected as cow eaters. Cow eaters, that is a sentimental issue in India, because cow is an animal which is held sacred by the Hindu community in this country, and that is why Muslims, they are beef eaters, they are cow eaters, so they are doing all these things. They are outraging the modesty of our mother cow and all, so that, and they eat the flesh of animals, so that is why they become animal. This kind of rhetoric will. Then Muslim religious are projected, religious and other educational institutions, they will be projected as nursery of terrorists. Muslims are also projected as infiltrators, those who came from outside, especially from Arabia or from Central Asia and all. So, because of all these factors, and on the border of India, you have an enemy country, that is Pakistan. Because of that, also it becomes easy to project Muslims as supporter of Pakistan and not having loyalty to India. So their loyalty to the nation also becomes doubtful in the eyes of the rightist forces, and they try to convince others as well. Another very interesting fact, and Khalid, you'll appreciate this fact. For example, if your name is Khalid, and if there is somebody in India and his name is Khalid, they will say that there should be Indianization of Islam. Why do you identify yourself with a foreign hero, Khalid bin Walid or Tariq bin Ziyad? They are foreign heroes. Why don't you have your own character? Why do you identify? Why do you have this kind of name, Arab names or Persian names? This should not be here in this country. So Indianization means you should identify with Lord Rama or Sita and all. So you cannot have this kind of name like Aisha or Fatima and all. So this Indianization of Islam or Indianization of Christianity that is to be there. Even the architecture, the mosque and the tombs, they have minarets and all. So that is not Indian architecture. These are the grievances, and what is the consequence? I'm running short of time, so that is why I have to go very fast. What are the consequences? I'm just reading out 2 testimonies. This kind of propaganda often results in violence against minorities, violence against Muslims. So, for example, I am reading out 2 testimonies only because, again, running short of time. So, in 2002, there was a massacre of Muslims. Many people termed this as genocide. In 2002, in Gujarat, that is one of the states of India, and one of the eyewitnesses who was interviewed at a camp, he testified. I quote, "I saw with my own eyes petrol being poured into the mouth of a 6-year-old Imran. 6-year-old Imran, unquote." Then, another testimony, I don't know whether I can control my tears or not, but, I'm going to read out, I'm trying to muster courage to read this, that, a woman identified, a woman eyewitness, I quote, "I saw my dearest friend Kausar Bano raped. Her unborn baby slashed out from her womb, being tossed into the fire to be roasted alive. Thereafter, she too was brutally cut up and torched. She was 9 months pregnant. It was her dream to get married and have a baby," unquote. When phobia is generated, people become mad, they become, animal, and they do this kind of thing. I have many other testimonies, but I cannot read out all those. Basically, why this kind of narrative is being generated. You can also see that, of course, there is a global rise of right, and also there is a global, it has become a global phenomena, that is Islamophobia. But you find the most spectacular success has been achieved by Indian right. If you see today, all over the world, if you compare, they are controlling power, in a secular democratic country, that is a contradiction itself. So, but at the same time, what is the silver lining? That we have a secular constitution. We have an independent, impartial judiciary. And the third very important thing is that among the majority community, that is Hindus, you will not find that majority of the people are subscribing to this particular ideology. A good number of people are liberal and secular. And that when the Muslims were being lynched, it started in 2014 when BJP came to power with brutal majority in the Parliament of India. At that time, you see that lynching of Muslims has started, and the Hindu scholars, of course, I feel very bad in saying Hindu or Muslim and all, but since we are discussing, in this particular paradigm is here, so that way non-Muslim scholars, most of them Hindu, they returned their state awards in protest of lynching. So that is the resistance that we are seeing in our country. And the last point I will discuss here is that, was already an enemy during the Cold War against which people could mobilize, internationally. And that was the Soviet Union. You will find surge in Islamophobia all over the world. So the red danger has been replaced by the green danger. A green symbolizes Islam. So, And here I'm reminded of Huntington, who says that there can be no true friends without true enemies. You cannot, we cannot love what we are unless we hate what we are not. So, this kind of thing, that projection of Muslims as aggressive, sexually aggressive, also extremist, violent, the women will be stereotyped, and, even the burqa or the hijab, that will be also become a symbol of slavery and all. So, stereotyping and then projecting Muslims as, violent and all this has started with the demise of the Soviet Union. And why to all? For the world.
I think we may be having some technical issues here.
It cannot be seen in isolation from what is.
Okay, it seems to have frozen. So I'll wait here a second just to see if it comes back. Okay, it appears that the connection has broken. Well, in any case, we are out of time. Thank you so much, Dr. Haque and Dr. Khan, for your presentation. We really appreciate it. And I was going to wait a second just to see if it comes back. No, I don't believe it seems to be broken. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and proceed to our last but not least, our final speaker, and that is Dr. Giuliano Bifolci. Dr. Bifolci holds a PhD in Islamic history from the University of Rome, Tor Vergata. He holds a master's degree in peacebuilding management and international relations from Pontifical University San Bonaventura, an MA and BA in history from the University of Rome, Tor Vergata. His fields of interests are Islamic history, geopolitics, security, conflict management, and ethnic minorities. Before enrolling at University Tor Vergata, he worked as a journalist and open source intelligence analyst specialized in the field of international relations, terrorism, and security in the Middle East and the post-Soviet space. He is the co-founder and the research manager of ASRI Analytica, an organization which provides geopolitical and intelligence analysis and consultancy. And with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Bifolci.
Thanks to everyone. Hope that you can hear me, and I'm going to share my screen with my presentation. Can you see the presentation?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so today I'm going to speak about Islamophobia Russia and the role of the media when presenting Islam and the Muslim community. I'm going to give you some information regarding like Islam, some overview, just to introduce you to a topic if you are not familiar with. So first of all, if we look to Russia, the Russian Federation has the largest Muslim population in the European continent. According to the last census 2010, in Russia live 50 million Muslims, but unofficially we can talk about 20 million people, 50% of the Russian population. And there are also 4 million Muslim migrants from Central Asia and the Caucasus, and most of Russian Muslims live in the North Caucasus, in Siberia and the Volga rural region. In fact, we can see that the Muslims are predominant to like some republic like Bashkortostan, Tatarstan, the Volga rural region, Kabardino-Balkaria. In Moscow, there are around 2 million Muslims, and in St. Petersburg, 500,000 Muslims. So going the Russian, I'm sorry, I don't know what is happening to my presentation. I'm sorry. I'm trying to stop properly. Okay. Probably I'm going there. It's better. I hope that you can see. So regarding Islam in Russian, like the Russian government and also the President Vladimir Putin has often underlined that Islam is an essential part of the Russian society and is one of the traditional religions. In 2005, the Russian Federation became an observer member of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. And in Russia, the Muslims have the same rights of other citizens according to the 1917 law, federal law. And there are also organizations which provide support to Russian Muslims, which support also the Kremlin attempt to create interfaith dialogue. But we should also say that there is a confrontation inside the country between the traditional official Islam, mostly Sufism, and supported by the Kremlin, and the so-called foreign unofficial Islam, Salafism or Wahhabism. There is also a problem of terminology regarding this. So you know also that Russia has been affected by terrorism since the collapse of the Soviet Union. And the first Chechen war and the establishment of the Chechen Republic of Ichkeria marked the diffusion of religious extremism, ideology, and terrorism. In 2007, Dr. Umarov announced the creation in Marak Kafkaz, the Caucasus Emirate, a terrorist organization which aimed at establishing an emirate based on Sharia in the North Caucasus. And in 2014 was created Vilchis Kafkaz, the Caucasus province, under the umbrella of Daesh, the Islamic State. So this means that Russia has also been influenced by Islamic jihadist propaganda in Russian language, on media, and like on internet and social network. Regarding Islamophobia, is a phenomenon well known in Russia. There is a general trend of contrasting everything is perceived as Islamic. The Russian Federation has registered many cases where non-Muslim citizens, civil organizations, and also the Orthodox Church protested against the construction of a mosque or a madrasa or the celebration of Islamic festival. There are also cases of discrimination in working places of Muslim women who wear scarves or Muslim men with beards. This is a general distinction between traditional Muslims like the Tatars or the Bashkirs, who are well integrated inside the Russian society, and those Muslims who are perceived as a foreign threat. And also the recent phenomenon of the Islamization of Chechnya under Ramazan Kadyrov's rule, is really important because Chechnya now is perceived as a foreign country inside the Russian Federation. It's a country more closer to the Middle East, the Arab Muslim world, than Russia, where Sharia law, according to Ramazan Kadyrov's words, is more important than the federal law. So we have this historical background, also ethnic background, and we have terrorism and some key actor figures that are influencing the dialogue and the discourse regarding Islam. Islamophobia and the media. There are different narratives on Islamophobia in Russia. Often the state media and the government strive to give a positive image of the so-called official traditional Islam and accuse of Wahhabism. There is also a problem with terminology because Wahhabism is referred to all the versions of Islam which are not accepted by the government. They see as an enemy of the state. State media and government politicians have several times underlined that Islamophobia is a Western fabrication to undermine the Russian multi-religious and multi-ethnic society. Usually they cite George Friedman's words. George Friedman was a former CIA operative and intelligence officer, and how he said that the Muslim community can be exploited by foreign actors to destabilize the national security and integrity of Russia. And usually they use these words to describe the fact that Islamophobia is a fabrication from the West. There is also a confrontation between Russia and the West in the media on how the Muslims live in these two different realities. The positive image of Russia, a country where different religious believers might live together protected by the law, is compared with the United States and Europe, where migrants and Muslim minorities live isolated or in the so-called ghetto and are alienated from the rest of the society. They are facing discrimination. The government has used a Soviet experience to describe how possible is the coexistence and cohabitation between different religious groups in Russia. It is really popular the idea of the Soviet man, which will be translated in this Russian man, a man who can be Muslim, who can be non-ethnic Russians, but can be part of the Russian establishment. Sofia Rogozina has studied how the national media present and discusses Islam. She analyzed articles from the main media channel and journals and newspapers from 2010 to 2017. And she described the fact that usually Islam is depicted as radical, traditional, pure, moderate, real, political, Sunni, militant, contemporary, and aggressive. Usually there is also in the media in Russia distinction between a geographical distinction of Islam. We can talk about Tatar Islam, Caucasic or Caucasian Islam, European and Russian Islam. Regarding the media, there are several Russian Muslim portals, a website, and also media agencies, and they have highlighted the problem with Islamophobia in Russia. And who are those people who express a strong negative feeling towards Islam and Muslims? According to Alif TV, I put here, Like these, there are some women who can be classified as strongly Islamophobic because they have strongly criticized Islam and Muslim values. Elena Chudinova, Yulia Latinina, Bozhena Rinska, Ksenia Sobchak, and Margarita Simonian. They are journalists, former journalists, writers. Also, Margarita Simonian is the editor-in-chief for Russian Today. And these women, they work in the field of media and communication. Usually they compare the fact that women cannot live in a Muslim society because they face discrimination, or they face the fact that, again, their rights are not protected. Usually, the media are really aggressive when there is a violent attack on like what happened in 2017 in St. Petersburg. There was a terrorist attack, and the media, there was a huge dialogue, a huge discussion about Islam, about the Muslim communities and the problem with the migrants from the Caucasus and Central Asia. So this is this open debate, and one of the most active media portal is golosislam.ru, is the voice of Islam in Russian. Is try to also to analyze Islamophobia, if it really exists or not. So there are also VKontakт. VKontakт is the Russian Facebook, and there are different groups. There are anti-Islam groups. They are against Islam. They are saying that Islam is not part of the Russian society, and they have to protect the Russian identity and the Orthodox identity. And there are also other groups that they try to contrast and counter these anti-Islam movements, and like trying to underline the main hypocrisy or false information about Islam. There is also another trend, really important, is like a new hijra. So the study conducted by Hakunov, Kamidov, and Aberov highlight the fact that in Russia is experiencing a new hijra from Russia to Turkey. It's like that, and we compare this phenomenon with the phenomenon which happened in the past, in the 19th century, when North Caucasian people escaped from the North Caucasus after the Caucasian War, because the Tsarist authorities invited and favored immigration from this region to the Ottoman Empire. Today is happening the same phenomenon. So when there are many Russian Muslims, they are migrating from Russia to Turkey because they perceive Turkey as a safe country, a country where they live as a Muslims, where they can profess their version of Islam, not only the traditional official Islam supported by the government. And we can see also in here in this picture that there are some, the tag Hijra is really popular on Instagram, and also there are some web pages, Instagram account, which are promoting the life in Turkey and are inviting a Muslim from Russia to live a new life, a better life as Muslims and use a human being in abroad. The question is, where Russian is experiencing Islamophobia or xenophobia? In these graphs and these like stats, we can see that how the Russian people perceive foreigners or migrants. And we can see that the main danger, they are the Tsigan, so the Gypsy, the Roma people. Then there are people from Africa, from Central Asia, the Chechens, the Chinese, the Ukrainians, the Hebrew people. And usually the majority of these people, they are saying that the state, the government needs to stop this migrant flow. It's a great problem, and this problem has always been affecting Russia. At the beginning was more Caucasophobia, the fear of the Caucasus, especially during the first Chechen conflict, and after the main terrorist attacks which occurred not only in North Caucasus but in the entire Russian soil. The most famous probably is the attack at the school of Beslan at the beginning of the 21st centuries. And we can also say there are some politicians who are using like Facebook, social networks, and the media to contrast the migrant flow, to contrast the Muslims. One of the most famous and most active is the Russian politician Vladimir Zhirinovsky. We say that who has often attacked via media and social accounts of migrants and Muslims in Russia and labeled them as a threat for the national identity and security. So David Herbert, in his quantitative research, underlined the fact that in Russia is more important to be like a migrant, to have a different ethnic background than to be Muslim. He said that being a Chechen, Ingush, Ossetian, and Azerbaijan is like more discriminatory than being Muslim. But also there is the fact that we can say the fact that the majority of migrants are Muslims, and when some terrorist attacks happened in Russia, usually the people who like to carry out these attacks are from the Caucasus and Central Asia. So now there is like the how can I say, there is this link between migrants and Muslims, and there is a link between Islamophobia and xenophobia. To sum up, to conclude, we can say the Russian Federation is not immune from Islamophobia. Although the government is trying to promote a positive image of Islam, is trying to promote a positive image of the country, a country linked to the past imperial era, a country where the Muslims can live and they are protected by the law, but they can live their religion, their credo without any discrimination. And the fact is that the main problem is that the Kremlin is only promoting a traditional official Islam through the media. It is not considering the fact that there are different versions of Islam, different Muslim community, and then the Kremlin is alienating this Muslim community, which can be recruited by the terrorist organization thanks to the jihadist propaganda. Media, internet, social networks are the contemporary battleground of ideologies, and Islam is one of the main topics discussed in this like mainstream. Russian Muslim portals and media agencies have denounced Islamophobia and the Russian negative feeling toward the Muslim migrants. But unfortunately, the terrorism attacks and also the terrorism as a phenomenon is a general increase of suspicions against the Muslims. And this is really evident on VKontakte, on social networks, and also in the Russian media. So if we can divide this narrative regarding Islamophobia in three different main boxes. So we can say that there is the state and the government. We are trying to promote a positive image of the country and Islam, and they are using the state media to do this, and also to compare the positive strategy, the good strategy of the Kremlin against the West, particularly Washington, the United States, but also the European Union. Another fact is that there is a consistent part of the media which is against Islam, which is like promoting Islamophobia, and the majority of these people are or politicians from the oppositions or are also female. There are female movements against Islam who can represent a threat for women. And there are also these Russian Muslim portals or Islamic portals which are trying to promote, to link and to create a ground where Muslims can live in Russia and we can overcome different problems. So thanks for your attention. I'm sorry about these problems with the sharing.
No problem at all. Thank you so much, Dr. Bifolchi, and many thanks to all of our panelists. At this time, I would like to invite attendees to type in their questions in the Q&A. If you're on a laptop, if you move your cursor, you will see it at the bottom. If you're on a phone, you may have to look around a little bit and find it. Maybe they're at the top, look for the three dots, and maybe you'll find it there. But while we wait for the questions to come in, I'd like, first of all, to see if there are any comments from any of the panelists. I see that Dr. Haque is back. Dr. Haque, I think we had a connection breakup at the end of your presentation. So I don't know if you wanted to add anything at the end. Oh, and you are muted, just so you know. Oh, Dr. Haque, it's actually muted right now. I wonder if you could unmute your microphone. There we go.
Dr. Khalid, I'm done. I think I have already finished. There are many things that we can discuss, but there is time constant, so 15 minutes are enough. I think I have made my point. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Haque. Okay, very good. Are there any questions from any of the panelists for any of the other panelists? Okay, well, seeing none, we do have a question here. Oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Mohammed, I was just going to make a comment with regard to one of the points or the examples that Dr. Nofret used. Thank you for the presentation, it was awesome. But I want to refer to, or at least kind of complicate a little bit, the notion of the accepted Muslim, the Muslim who kind of, goes across as accepted in different contexts. And in the case of her colleague or friend, I really think he did not encounter discrimination precisely because, and I don't want this to sound, just to say it delicately, because precisely he did not display anything of his Muslimness. None of his Muslimness was visible, and therefore he did not encounter discrimination. He's the kind of Muslim who the neoliberal kind of, archetype wants to see. The Muslim who has very, very little signs of his own identity or her own identity, and therefore they could pass. They could pass by kind of, going covered, so to speak. And so I don't really think he had anything to do with his position as a university scholar. I think he was really more that he seemed to be like everybody else, where none of his Muslim characteristics or none of his Muslimness was visible to his environment. That was it. Thank you.
Can I add something and maybe respond to answer to a question? So yes, that's true, but also it's true that in France it wasn't like that for him, because in France he was clearly Arab, clearly Moroccan, and clearly Muslim. So it was he's a good Muslim in Mexico. He's he's a good Muslim
he's a good Muslim precisely for not being a Muslim.
Exactly. But in Mexico, but in Mexico, not in France, not in Belgium, not maybe even in Canada, because here in Mexico we don't we hear Haque, and we don't know where this come from. But in Canada, you know where Haque come from, or in France. So that's why he feels. I do agree, but I just wanted to precise this. Like he's accepted in Mexico because of the ignorance of Mexican society about Muslims and Arabs, and because his religion is not visible. That's true, but that was not the case in France or Belgium or Canada or even in Spain for him. So and about this first question, I will just answer that, and maybe some of my colleagues will answer the others. They were asking about the component of gender and sexism in Islamophobia. And the question is that if women cannot report domestic violence because of this image of violence in the men, in Muslim men. No, quite the contrary. I think it's like all other women in the world that face domestic violence. But the problem is that because of being women, Muslim women, we immediately think they are more subjected. They cannot be able to speak just to criticize this and to denounce this domestic violence, but it's not the truth. I mean, that's part, to think like this is part of the Orientalism and Islamophobic kind of thinking, because the reality is that there are a lot of examples in Islam of women having even creating one of the first universities in Tunis in the world, you know. So there's also another example of one of the first converted to Islam was one of the warriors. She was one of the warriors that protected in one of the fights. Sorry, there's something going around here, but that protected Muhammad, the prophet, in the fights. So I think that Orientalism and Islamophobia make us think that women are more subjected just for being Muslims, just for using a veil, but it's just like in another kind of domestic violence. There's no differentiation for that. I mean, it will be the same for a Muslim woman, for a Latin woman, for an European woman, for an African, Afro-American woman, this domestic violence. And the problem is that we do not understand that thinking that Arab men or Muslim men are more violent than African men or than Latin men or than European men will not help them to get rid of this violence. All the contrary. And I think that will be all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Vilchis. And that was in response to a question typed into the Q&A by Professor Amina Evred. Thank you so much.
Khalid, can I take up this
Please.
question that, so you see, first of all, there is a question about good Muslim and bad Muslim. There should be some kind of reflection. In our own country, when we are seeing the media environment, that is always having Islamophobia in mind. So we have, of course, good Muslim and bad Muslim narrative in our country as well. For example, you might have heard about Sayyid Wasim Rizvi, who is also holding, who was holding a government position in the present dispensation. And he recently went to the Supreme Court of India and said that the 26 verses of the Holy Quran must be deleted from the Quran because, they teach violence and they are preaching terrorism and violence. So he becomes a good Muslim for the, right-wing politicians and right-wing leaders. Similarly, Tariq Fatah, who is a Pakistani scholar based in Canada, he is, a poster boy and a very, good boy of among the Muslims who is always on the TV in our country. So, this good Muslim bad narrative is there. For example, those who are buying those who are subscribing to the particular ideology, projecting Muslim rulers as invaders and cruel and all, so they are good Muslim, and those who are not subscribing, resisting, they are bad Muslims. Number two is that very interesting question that domestic violence against women. I am very much convinced that domestic violence against women doesn't know the community barrier. It is a universal phenomenon you will find all over the world. In our society also, in India also, that is there. But in India there is a very vibrant, progressive Muslim groups. They are there. So you will find, for example, there is the All India Muslim Personal Law Board, but All India Muslim Personal Law Board in India that is trying to protect the personal laws of the Muslims, the civil laws especially. But in reaction to that, the women, the women, they came up and they said it is a male chauvinist organization where the representation of women is less. And that is why they formed what is called Muslim Women Personal Law Board. Similarly, you'll find Muslim Mahila Morcha and many other organizations, progressive Muslim organizations are there. They are of course presenting the cases of domestic violence and all. And thirdly, the judiciary in India, that has been in particular very responsive to these kind of cases. So that is why, as a citizen of this country, in a secular country, the Muslim, Hindu, Sikh, Christian, they all can go to the court, and that is why you'll find thousands of women are also going to the courts, Muslim women as well, and it does not prevent them from going to the court. Last point in this particular narrative, that when the Muslim male are being projected as aggressive and the women as very fertile. So what happened during Gujarat violence, you'll find in 2002, that when the women were found raped and murdered, it was also found, and that have been documented by the feminist organizations, that their private parts were especially targeted, because that fertile breeding ground for Muslims, who are of course not acceptable to the society. So ultimately, rods were inserted in their private parts. You'll also find in few cases that the penises of the Muslim male were cut. Why? Because, again, very aggressive, sexually aggressive, producing a lot of children. So you will find a reverse kind of, reaction is there. And that leads to a very, very dangerous situation. So I think I answered the question.
Yeah, and I should probably clarify to the panelists also that the Q&A, the folks who are attending actually may not be able to see the question. So I'm going to actually explain what this was in response to. First, there was a question about the gendered component of Islamophobia. And there was a question about whether the presenters could elaborate on how the image of Muslim men being aggressive inhibits women from reporting domestic violence. And we already heard two responses to this. And then the other question was asking if the speakers could expand on the power of narrative, such as the good Muslim, bad Muslim narrative, and the biased representation. So that was also in response to that question. This question is for Dr. Vilchi. Will you please elaborate more on the dilemma of the homegrown, the ordeal of converts? Because of the time, I would ask that this will be the second to last question, and then I'll just see if Dr. let's see. Oh, here we go. Dr. Bifolchi would like to add anything as well. So Dr. Vilchi, I'll give that to you.
To me again?
Oh, sorry. Yes, the question is.
Yes. No, yes, but if I understood well, I thought it would be for later. So if I understood, it's how it comes in, like the converts. How is the phenomenon of conversion in Mexico? I think. Okay.
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. So to be a little bit brief. There's a lot of studies from my colleagues that tend to show that this conversion to Islam from Mexicans is a way to belong to an universal idea, an universal community, the Umma, and to get rid of some discriminations already upon them, like social discriminations for class, for maybe also the color of their skin, and but especially for class. So this is a way to get rid of this classism they live in, and to feel they belong to a universal community. So the conversions tend to be among young people, like in the early 20s, but still they don't there are some of these converts that don't follow up. I have a friend that, for example, she has converted, but now she's some kind of Sufi. she hasn't follow with the whole veil, and just for a time. So I don't know if with this I can finish, and my colleagues can answer also some of the questions.
Thank you, Dr. Vilchis. We actually are out of time, so I see a hand raised, but I want to give Dr. Bifolchi a chance to respond, because I think he was the only one who didn't get a chance to speak during the Q&A. So Dr. Bifolchi, if you'd like to add something.
Thanks. Probably regarding good Muslim and bad Muslim, like this narrative, you know, I'm talking about Russia. So there is the government and state promotion of the good Muslim is a Muslim who profess a religion like the Islam, like the traditional official Islam. And there is this narrative. There are many commissions. Also, there is this commission of a multicultural, multi-religious, multi-ethnic dialogue inside the Kremlin, inside the government. But the main problem is that they are trying to separate the Muslim community, and this is really a big mistake, because we can say that like the Salafi people, we have to divide Jihadi Salafis with Salafis. There are also Salafis who, like, we are living in Russia, we want only to profess a different version of Islam. But unfortunately, the narrative about these people is that they are bad Muslims and they are closer to terrorists. And now the majority of these people are facing discrimination, also like violent attacks. And there are also episodes of people who are forced to drink alcohol or to cut the bird. And they are promoted by some local media. So regarding good Muslim, bad Muslim, like in Russian, the majority of this idea or this image is promoted by the state, by the government. And the worst mistake is the fact that they are pushing people in the arms of the terrorist organization and jihadist propaganda.
Thank you so much. We actually are out of time, but I want to thank all of our panelists and give them a virtual round of applause. Many thanks to you all. And now we will take a short break.